In video number 7 of the SAT Bootcamp, we're going to talk about another part of speech, and that part of speech is prepositions. Now, prepositions are words in a sentence that, to put it generally, show relationships between other words in the sentence. Now, let's get more specific than that. Generally, prepositions are going to show time and or space relationships, or they tell us the conditions that something happens, that something occurs in. We'll say occurs under. So what does that mean? Well, what are some examples of prepositions? Well, here are some examples. I mean, there are a ton, but I'll give you a few. So about, after, around, at, down, in, of, on, to, until, without, and so on. I think you get the picture. So all these words can't be used by themselves generally, right? I can't say, I walked after, period. That's not a sentence, right? We're waiting for, well, I mean, it is a sentence, but the after can't just stand there by itself. It needs to have some addition on the end of it in order for it to make sense. And that's where we get the prepositional phrase from. So most of the time, the grand majority of the time you see prepositions, you're going to see them in a prepositional phrase. So an example of such a sentence would be, I walked after I ate. So this would be an example of a prepositional phrase because you've got a preposition and then you've got these words here that complete it. Another example would be, let's see, around, no, let me start it with the actual word. He bought the house down the road. So here is another prepositional phrase. And in this case, so in the first case, after I ate, this is a prepositional phrase that acts as an adverb, right? Because it modifies this walk. It tells us when the walking occurred. Well, it occurred after I ate. Or, you can change this. If you don't like the verb here, you can say after dinner, whatever. Right? So this would be a prepositional phrase that acts as an adverb because it tells us under what conditions or when I walked. Right? Time or space. In this case, he bought the house down the road. This prepositional phrase acts like an adjective because it's describing the house, right? It's telling us what house specifically this person bought, and it's the house down the road. So it tells us where in space this object, this house is. Right, so you can see prepositional phrases can act in many different ways. They can act as adverbs, so they can modify a verb, and this is where generally the conditions that something occur under comes in, right? So another example would be something like, he only bowls until, now, he only bowls, let's see, before breakfast. I don't know. This is really dumb, but you get the idea. Right? Here is another prepositional phrase. It's an adverb that modifies bowls. Right? It tells us when or under what conditions he bowls. Okay, so they can act as adjectives, they can act as adverbs, but they can also act as what's called introductory modifiers. So they can start off the sentence. So something like this. Before John left the country, he bought gifts for his family. So here we have a prepositional phrase, right? Before John left the country, and it's modifying, essentially, in this case, the noun. It's telling you, what, well, I guess it's, well, we won't get into what it's modifying. The point is that it's introducing the sentence, right? It's telling us before John left the country, he bought gifts for his family. So we could also, by the way, we could take this and put this at the end of the sentence as well. We could say he bought gifts for his family before, well, we'd have to put John bought gifts for his family before he left the country, right? We can put that in the end if we'd like. And whether you put it in the beginning or the end, generally, grammatically doesn't matter, but it's about rhythm and style and all those other things that don't necessarily have to do with grammar. Let's see, what else do I have to say about prepositions. So we talked about prepositional phrases, we talked about different prepositions. Okay, finally, how do they test prepositions on the SAT? So generally they're not going to test prepositional phrases directly. I mean, you're going to see prepositional phrases in the various sentences. You're going to see them as adjectives, as adverbs. You're going to see them within the main clause of the sentence. You're going to see them as introductory modifiers. But they're not really going to test them directly. But what they will test with prepositions is which prepositions go with which verbs, which prepositions go with which nouns, with which phrases. And that is a question of idioms. And in the next video, I will discuss idioms and the errors you might see related to those on the SAT.